Intro. Slash hook. D'una Chalet story. I always believed becoming a grandfather would bring my family closer. That's what everyone says, isn't it? A baby changes everything. Well, it did, just not the way I expected. A few months after my grandson was born, I realized my son had started checking the window before opening the front door. Not because he didn't love me, because he wanted to know if I'd brought another solution to a problem he never asked me to fix. I didn't understand it then. I thought I was being helpful. Looking back, I was slowly turning every visit into another job for my own family. It took me almost losing the place I wanted most to finally understand what they needed from me. And it wasn't another toolbox. It was their dad.
The day my grandson was born, I honestly thought my family had been given a second chance. For years, we'd all been busy, working, raising kids, living our own lives. Then Ethan came along, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is what brings everybody back together. 6 months later, I was standing on my son's front porch holding a tiny baseball glove, and I was starting to wonder if becoming a grandfather had actually pushed us farther apart. David opened the door just enough to step outside. He looked worn out. His t-shirt had a spit-up stain across one shoulder. Behind him, I could hear a baby crying somewhere inside the house. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." I held up the little gift bag. "I was driving by. Thought I'd drop this off." He smiled, a tired smile. "The timing's terrible." I nodded toward the hallway. "Rough day?" He laughed without much energy. "You have no idea." I remember. He rubbed the back of his neck.
We just got him to sleep. Oh, I should have called. No. He looked over his shoulder for a second. Actually, I probably would have said tomorrow anyway. I laughed. So that's my hint. He smiled. I guess it is. I handed him the bag. He peeked inside. A baseball glove? For opening day? Dad, he's 2 months old. I know. I got excited. For just a second, he laughed the way he used to, a real laugh. Then it disappeared. I appreciate it. I really do. He looked back toward the hallway again, trying to survive right now. I get it. I'll get out of your way. He squeezed my shoulder before closing the door. Love you. Love you too. I stood on the porch another few seconds, not because I was upset, because I could still hear Ethan crying through the front window. Then I walked back to my truck. The passenger seat was covered with things I'd bought over the past month. A package of board books, a little stuffed bear, a children's fishing hat I'd found on sale. I looked at all of it, started the engine, and drove home. The whole way back, I kept telling myself the same thing. They're exhausted. That's all this is. New parents don't sleep. They don't think straight. I knew that. Carol and I had lived through it twice. Still, there was one thought I couldn't quite shake. Maybe they were tired. Or maybe I'd become one more thing they had to manage. My name's Tom. I'm 68. I spent 43 years as an electrician. Something quit working, people called me. Breaker panel, garage door, kitchen lights, storm damage. Didn't matter. I liked fixing things. Truth is, I probably needed to. 5 years before Ethan was born, my wife Carol died. Cancer. One spring, she was planting tomatoes. By Christmas, I was eating dinner alone. People tell you the house feels empty afterward. They're right, but that's not the hardest part.
The hardest part is how quiet ordinary things get.
The coffee pot finishes brewing. Nobody says, "You getting mine?" You hear the dryer buzz. Nobody asks you to fold towels. You buy a loaf of bread and throw half of it away. That kind of quiet sneaks up on you. David and Lisa both lived close enough to visit, far enough that life usually got in the way. Nobody meant for it to happen. It just did. Then one Tuesday evening, my phone rang. "Dad?" It was David. "You sitting down?" I laughed. Should I be worried? No. A pause, then, "We're having a baby." Don't think I've ever crossed my garage so fast. Carol kept an old cedar chest out there, hadn't opened it in years. Inside were things we'd saved without really knowing why. A tiny knit blanket, baby shoes, Lisa's first stuffed rabbit, and the rocking chair I'd built before she was born. Dust covered the seat. I brushed it off with my hand. The wood still smelled faintly of cedar. I rocked it once. It creaked exactly the way it used to. For the first time since Carol died, I started thinking about the future instead of the past. Not big dreams, just ordinary ones. Sunday dinners, a little boy following me around the garage asking what every tool was for. Teaching somebody how to bait a hook without hooking his own thumb. Christmas mornings that felt noisy again. Funny how quick your mind builds a life that hasn't happened yet. When Ethan finally arrived, I cried before anyone even handed him to me. David looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Megan somehow looked even more worn out. Lisa stood beside the hospital bed, smiling through tears. David carefully placed Ethan in my arms. Wasn't much bigger than a football. His fingers wrapped around mine. Nobody said anything. Nobody needed to. I remember looking at David, then at Ethan, and thinking, we're gonna be a family again. Looking back, that might have been the biggest assumption I made the whole year. For the first month, everything felt easy. I'd stop by with coffee. David would hand me Ethan before I'd even got my jacket off. Your turn. I'd sit in the recliner while everybody else hurried around the house. Laundry, bottles, diapers. I didn't mind. I could have held that little boy all afternoon. Every week he looked different. His eyes stayed open a little longer, his grip got stronger, his face started looking more like David. I didn't want to miss any of it. Maybe that's where I made my first mistake. At the time, didn't feel like a mistake. Felt like love. One afternoon, I was at the hardware store picking up light bulbs, walked past the baby aisle. 5 minutes later, I was pushing a cart with cabinet locks, outlet covers, and corner protectors. Nobody had asked for them. I just thought, they're gonna need these soon. The cashier smiled. First grandbaby? Is it that obvious? She laughed. You've got the look. What look? The one where you're buying things nobody told you to buy. I laughed all the way to the truck. Looking back, she knew more than I did. A week later, I installed a car seat in my pickup. Brand new, spent almost 40 minutes making sure it was perfectly level. Pulled on every strap 3 different times. When I finished, I stepped back and smiled. Now, if David called and said, "Can you take Ethan for a couple hours?" I'd be ready. Nobody ever called. Sometimes I'd open the back door just to look at it. Still sitting there, perfectly clean, never used. The rocking chair came inside next. I put it in the spare bedroom, bought a small bookshelf, filled it with children's books. Trucks, dinosaurs, baseball, The same stories I'd read to David till I practically knew every page by heart. Then I bought a little nightlight shaped like the moon, not because anybody needed it, because I liked imagining Ethan sleeping there someday.
Funny thing about empty rooms. You spend enough time preparing them, they start feeling occupied by people who never actually show up. Around that time, the phone calls changed. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Today's probably not good. He finally fell asleep. We've got a doctor's appointment. Maybe later this week. Every reason made sense. Every single one. I never argued, never complained. I'd say, no problem, another time. And I meant it. At least, I thought I did. One Saturday, I drove to the sporting goods store. Wasn't looking for anything in particular. Then I saw it. A tiny leather baseball glove. The smallest one they'd made. No 2-month-old could use it. Maybe not even a 1-year-old. Didn't matter. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands. I could already picture tossing a ball back and forth someday. The young guy at the register smiled. Cute gift. My grandson. How old? Couple months. He looked at the glove. You've got a few years. I know. I can wait. I honestly believed that. That afternoon, I drove toward David's house. Halfway there, I realized I hadn't called. Almost turned around. Instead, I thought, it's family. I don't need an appointment. When David opened the door, I knew right away I'd interrupted something. He wasn't annoyed, just tired. Behind him, Megan was pacing the hallway with Ethan over her shoulder. The baby was crying so hard his little face had turned bright red. David lowered his voice. We're trying something new. Oh, everything okay? He laughed. Depends who you ask. I held up the baseball glove. Wrong time? He looked at it, then at me. I hate saying this, he paused. But yeah. For just a second, I almost said, it'll only take a minute. Instead, I nodded. I'll let you guys get back to it. He took the bag. Thanks, Dad. As I turned toward the truck, I heard Ethan stop crying. Just for a second. Then he started again. I sat behind the steering wheel without starting the engine. Not angry, not hurt, just quiet. Because for the first time, it crossed my mind that maybe I wasn't showing up when they needed me. Maybe I was showing up when I needed them. That thought didn't stay long. I pushed it away before I got home. Ethan's first family cookout came a couple weeks later. The backyard looked exactly the way I'd pictured it all those months before. David at the grill, Lisa carrying bowls out to the patio, Megan laughing with her parents, Ethan sleeping in the shade. For a little while, I thought maybe I'd imagined all the distance. Maybe everything was fine after all. Then Megan mentioned they still weren't getting much sleep. Without thinking, I said, "You know what worked for Carol and me?" David looked over. What? Keep him awake a little longer in the afternoon. Might help him sleep through the night. Nobody answered right away. Then Lisa smiled. Dad's got another tip. Everybody laughed, including me. Then David flipped a burger and said, "Yeah, Dad usually has one." He smiled when he said it. So did I. But for some reason, that one sentence stuck with me long after dinner was over. The cookout wound down just before sunset. I was carrying a trash bag around the side of the house when I heard voices through the open kitchen window. Wasn't trying to listen. Honestly, I wasn't. Then I heard Megan. "Your dad means well." Silence. Then she said, "I just never know when he's coming over." David didn't answer. She kept going. "I feel like I have to apologize if the house isn't clean."
Another pause. Finally, David sighed. I know. I'll talk to him. No. She said it quick. I don't want him thinking we don't love having him around. I just... She searched for the words. Want to breathe once in a while. I stood there another second. Then I quietly walked back around the house. Nobody knew I'd heard any of it. Nobody ever would. That night, I sat alone on my back porch. The coffee beside me had gone cold. Moths circled the porch light. Somewhere down the street, somebody was mowing their lawn, even though it was getting dark. I kept hearing the same sentence. I just want to breathe once in a while. At first, I was defensive. She doesn't understand. I'm only helping. That's what family does. Then another thought showed up, a quieter one. What if she wasn't talking about my advice? What if she was talking about me? I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I almost called David. Instead, I put the phone back down. For the first time since Ethan was born, I decided not to visit. Not because I was angry, because I wanted to see what happened if I stopped reaching first. The first week wasn't so bad. I rebuilt an old bicycle that had belonged to Lisa. New chain, new tires, fresh brake cables. I worked slow, sometimes just to make the afternoon last a little longer. When I finished, the bike looked almost new. I stood back, admiring it. Then it hit me. Lisa was 38 years old. Why exactly was I rebuilding her childhood bicycle? Didn't have an answer. A few days later, I was cleaning the garage. Behind a shelf, I found the unopened box from the car seat. The receipt was still taped to it. I stared at it a long time. I'd installed it the day I bought it. Never once had Ethan ridden in my truck. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I suddenly realized how much of my retirement had quietly turned into waiting. Waiting for visits, waiting for invitations, waiting for someone to need me again. Frank, my next-door neighbor, caught me washing the truck one Saturday. Haven't seen the little guy lately. They've been busy. He nodded. My daughter was the same. They come back. You just can't chase them. I smiled. Easier said than done. Frank shrugged. Yeah, it is. Then he went back to trimming his hedges. He probably forgot the conversation before lunch. I thought about it all weekend. Rain kept me inside one Tuesday. I pulled Carol's photo albums off the bookshelf. Every one had neat little labels in her handwriting. Disney, Christmas '98, David's graduation. I spent 2 hours turning pages. There was David at 7 with a missing front tooth, Lisa asleep on the couch with the dog, Carol standing at the stove wearing one of my old sweatshirts. Then I noticed something I'd somehow missed all these years. In almost every picture, I was doing something. Fixing a bicycle, building a deck, holding a rake, working on the car. Very few pictures showed me simply sitting with the kids. Honestly, couldn't remember if I'd ever known how. About 3 weeks later, I was halfway through dinner when my phone buzzed. Lisa had posted new pictures. I smiled before opening them. Ethan in a little high chair, cake all over his face. David laughing so hard he was bent over. Megan's parents were there. Lisa was there. Even Frank recognized the backyard when he walked past my window later that evening. You finally make it over there? I looked up from the phone. No, I guess not. He waved and kept walking. I stared at those pictures a long time. Not because I'd been left out, because I couldn't stop asking myself one question. Did they forget me? Or did they finally enjoy one afternoon without worrying what I'd fix next? That question hurt a whole lot more than the photographs. The next afternoon, there was a knock at my front door. Lisa stood there holding 2 coffees. The usual? I took one. 2 creams. No sugar. She smiled. I remember. We sat at the kitchen table. For almost a minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, she looked around the room. It still feels like Mum lives here. I looked toward the hallway. Some days, I think she does. Lisa smiled. Then her expression changed.
You saw the pictures. I nodded once. I did. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking for an apology. I know. Another long silence. Then she quietly asked, Dad, can I tell you something that's gonna be hard to hear? I looked at her. I'd rather hear it from you than guess. She nodded slowly. Okay. She wrapped both hands around her coffee. You know what David told me a few weeks ago? I shook my head. He said, she hesitated, he feels like he's still trying to earn your approval. I frowned. At 41? She nodded. I know. I didn't believe it either. I leaned back in my chair. That's ridiculous. Is it? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Lisa wasn't finished. When something breaks, you're already fixing it. When Ethan cries, you're already explaining why. When David grills burgers, you're checking the temperature. When Megan folds laundry, you're showing her a faster way. I rubbed my forehead. I was trying to help. I know, she smiled sadly. Nobody doubts that. Then she said something I'll probably remember the rest of my life. Dad, you still walk into David's house like it's your house. It isn't anymore. That one sentence knocked the wind out of me, not because she was cruel, because she was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that my son's home had quietly become his. His rules, his routines, his mistakes to make, his family to raise. And every time I walked in ready to improve something, I was reminding him of the years when he was 12 instead of 41. Lisa reached across the table. You know what Megan said after that cookout? I looked up. What? She said, I hope Tom knows we love him. I didn't say anything. I just wish he'd come over because he misses us, not because he thinks we need him. I stared into my coffee. By then, it had gone cold. So had mine. After Lisa left, I walked into the spare bedroom. The rocking chair sat in the corner. Next to it was the little bookshelf. Every children's book still lined up neatly. The baseball glove rested on the top shelf. And in the closet, still in the bag from a month earlier, was the diaper bag I'd bought just in case. I sat down in the rocking chair. It creaked once. The room looked ready for a little boy. Truth was, I'd built a place for memories that hadn't happened. Not because anyone asked me to, because I couldn't stop waiting for them. That afternoon, I carried the diaper bag back to the garage, not out of anger, just because it didn't belong there anymore. The following Saturday, my phone rang. It was David. Hey, Dad. Hey, You busy tomorrow? No? We're taking Ethan to the park. You want to come? For a split second, the old version of me almost answered. Sure, I can bring my toolbox. That stroller wheel still squeaks. Instead, I smiled. I'd love to. Great. We'll pick you up around 10. When we hung up, I looked toward the garage. The toolbox was sitting exactly where I'd left it. I thought about loading it into the truck anyway, just in case. Then I laughed at myself and left it where it was. The park wasn't anything special. A pond, 2 swings, a few ducks. Ethan spent almost 20 minutes pointing at the same goose. David laughed every single time. I watched him instead of correcting him. At one point, David struggled folding the stroller. My hands almost reached for it. Instead, I asked, "You want a hand?" He looked up. "I've got it." "Okay." And that was the end of the conversation. No awkwardness, no silence, no disappointment. Just respect. Don't think I understood how important that little word was till then. Asked, not assumed. A week later, David called again. "Dad? Yeah? Can you watch Ethan for a couple hours?" "Of course." When they left, the house went perfectly quiet. Just me and my grandson. I carried him into the living room, sat in the old rocking chair. He looked at me for a few seconds, grabbed one of my fingers, then rested his head against my chest. I thought about everything I'd wanted to teach him: fishing, baseball, how to change a tire, how to wire an outlet, how to sharpen a pocket knife. Maybe one day I'd teach him all that, but not today. Today, he didn't need lessons. He just needed somebody who wasn't in a hurry. Within minutes, he fell asleep. I stayed exactly where I was. Didn't reach for the television. Didn't check my phone. Didn't think about what needed fixing. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to make the moment better. I was just in it. By early fall, Sunday dinners quietly came back. Nobody announced them, nobody planned them. They just happened. Some weeks at David's, some weeks at my place. One evening, after dinner, Ethan started rubbing his eyes. Megan smiled at me. "I think somebody wants Grandpa." I carried him upstairs. The hallway was dim. His room smelled like baby shampoo. I rocked him till his breathing slowed. Then I laid him gently in his crib. As I turned toward the door, David was standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, watching. "Thanks, Dad." "Anytime." He looked toward the nursery, then back at me. "You know," he smiled, "I've missed this." "So have I." He nodded toward the stairs. "We're doing burgers again next Sunday." "I'll be here." He grinned. "I know." Then he glanced toward the garage through the kitchen window. "Just one request." "What's that?" He smiled. "Bring yourself." A small laugh escaped both of us. "You can leave the toolbox at home." I looked at him for a second, then nodded. "I think I finally can." As I drove home that evening, I realized something I wish I'd understood years earlier. I spent most of my life believing the best fathers are the ones who solve the most problems. It took becoming a grandfather to understand something better. Sometimes, the greatest gift a father can give his family is letting them discover they never stopped wanting him.